You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
Auston Matthews continues to chug towards 70 goals. What's going on, everybody? It's the Wednesday edition of Leafs Morning Take presented by Betano, Nick Alberga, and guest host Anthony Stewart as we inch closer to the end of the regular season. What's going on, Stewie?
I'm doing well. Another Leaf win, so all is well in Leafland.
It's crazy. I'm trying to be cautiously optimistic, but it's tough to not say that I'm excited for the Stanley Cup playoffs. And Stewie, it's funny. I did a guest hit on Montreal radio earlier today, and I'm there's just optimism. But I can't remember a year where it wasn't before the playoffs in the last 8 years, and we weren't excited about this team. I just want to see them go out there and do it now.
Yeah, it just seems that in years past, the team, was a one or two man show, but every night it just seems like someone else is stepping up, having a big game. Obviously, Auston Matthews is going to do Auston Matthews things, and I'm sure we're going to get into that shortly here. But it just seems every night it's a team effort, just an unsung hero. You see the Leafs give the belt at the end of every game. It's not just the same guys every time; it's a variety of guys. I think pretty much almost everyone on this team has gotten the belt, and it's great to see because it's a team effort, and that is the making of a team that's ready to make a run. At least it seems like it.
Yeah, it does. And again, there's a lot of positives to grab. I think the fortunate thing, if you were to ask me, obviously you want this team playing well going into the Stanley Cup playoffs, and it looks like they're going to achieve that. They're feeling good, they're having fun. They're playing intense hockey, they're playing desperate hockey, everything you want to see, the checklist. I've been seeing it. You want to clean up the D-zone turnovers and stuff like that. But for the most part, it's actually been a good watch. It's been a fun watch. And it looks like a team who is rounding into form for the Stanley Cup playoffs. So that's why I think there's reason to be optimistic, where it's you watch this team. They've been playing playoff hockey for two months now, it feels. At least, dating back to the Ridley Gregg game, there was that conversation, as you referenced earlier this week in late January. Was it is this team going to make the playoffs? Is Sheldon Keefe on the hot seat? They've really, really rallied, but I think it will help them in the long run, knowing they've played meaningful hockey the last 2 months.
Absolutely. And with the adversity that this team has gone through, I just think of the meme from Lenny from The Simpsons, where he's just sitting there waiting. He's waiting for something bad to happen. And Leafs Nations have been waiting for that, right? When Riley got suspended or there was some injuries, Samsonov going down to the minors, everybody was waiting to write this team off and sort of now say, hey, this is what we were expecting. Let's now switch everything. Let's change everything. But, say what you want about Brad Treliving. He found a way to bring in great compliments to this roster. He made the team a little bit more competitive, added a little bit more edge, a little bit more bite, a little bit more physicality. And that's now all these players are starting to peak and play good hockey at the right time. And they had the luxury of putting some other guys into the lineup, and they didn't miss a beat. Gregor had a decent game. You saw Robertson score a big goal. Timmins was half decent after sitting for a little bit as well too. So again, they're getting it done by committee. It's not just one or two guys. And for me, that's the making of a team that is playing the game the right way, peaking at the right time. And now they have an identity. We've been talking about that for the last 3-4 years, Muzzy, about the identity of this team. They just seem now that they have more of an identity, which is positives for Leafs Nation.
And here at Leafs Nation, we have a variety of reasons to be pumped for the Stanley Cup playoffs. And I'm going to tell you among them, one of the biggest reasons that we've been teasing it for a while, but finally, we're pumped to tell you that Greta Bar YYZ is set to open its doors on Friday, April 26th, deep in the heart of King Street West, my villa in downtown Toronto. Greta Bar will act as your go-to spot for all the hockey playoffs and baseball coverage you can handle, whether you're pre-gaming, looking to watch the big game, post-gaming, or just looking to dust your friends off at some arcade games. Greta Bar YYZ will have you covered with delicious eats and thirst-quenching drinks. Go big. Go to Greta Bar YYZ. Watch this commercial. Fired up for Greta Bar, man. That's going to be phenomenal. And on top of that, I think the great thing with Greta Bar, you'll be able to wear your Bleed Blue swagger into Greta Bar for a Stanley Cup playoff game. It's going to be a lot of fun. The playoffs are near, and we are ready to bleed blue, Stewie. Nation Gear is ready to gear you up for Toronto's playoff run. Rep your favorite team as they battle for the cup. Shop the exclusive Bleed Blue playoff tee and more at nationgear.ca, and I'm sure we'll hook you up with a t-shirt. But looking forward to those two ventures, man. Greta Bar, right my neck of the woods on King Street West. I cannot wait for that to open.
Yeah, that looks like it's going to be a great venture there too. But I don't. Speaking of ventures, I don't venture too often down to King Street. I go see our good friend Peter at Marble. That's about it. I'm actually too tick to fit in Mademoiselle, so I'm not trying to bring up another company here. But Greta Bar, definitely go check it out. I'm hearing some good things. I actually see some stuff online, which is great. So be sure to check it out.
The best part about Greta Bar, and I've been saying this for like 6 months, it is the cross the street from my previous favorite bar. You know what that is?
What's
Two
that?
Cats.
Ooh, you are honestly, if there was an ambassador for a place, it's either me for Century Room, but you for Two Cats. You have the apparel, you got pictures of you standing on tables, you probably got you falling out of the back door there. So again, you're a good promoter. You're honestly one of the best ad reads in the business too. So I'll give you that as well too. So Greta Bar, if you need someone reading some great ads, be sure to call Nick because he's amazing to say the least.
Tell you what, come April 26th, I have a brand new favorite bar on King Street West. So looking forward to that. Also looking forward to the reunion on today's show. Once upon a time ago, you were at Sportsnet. I was at Sportsnet. And today's guest is currently working at Sportsnet. DA David Amber is going to drop by in about 25 from now.
And DA is one of the best in the business. And he's very, very knowledgeable. But the one thing is he carries this binder. And if there's one thing that he does not know, he goes in his binder and he has the answer there. So we talk about, there's a lot of guys out there that fake the funk. He is a genuine hockey fan. He's a Leaf fan as well, too. He won't let you know that, but he wants to see the Leafs do well. But again, he's been great in mentoring me when I came into the business about 5 years ago. He's amazing. He's the best in the business. Amazing analyst, amazing host, but amazing person as well.
So as many of you know, I went to the College of Sports Media, graduated in 2011, and one of my favorite profs there, probably my favorite prof, was David Amber, if you can believe it. And full circle, as you know, I work for Sportsnet. I thought that was the coolest damn thing to somebody with work with somebody I idolized, and just so prepared. A Leafs fan, does the Leafs regional broadcast, has been in Hockey Night in Canada. And looking forward to his opinion. I think if there's one person who has been documenting goal by goal Auston Matthews' pace and surge towards 70, it's obviously David Amber. So looking forward to that interview in about 25 minutes here, Stu.
Yeah, and again, it's if you're a Leaf fan, there's a lot to be positive about, but there's also that uncertainty. You're saying, well, I want to be happy, I want to cheer, but they're almost waiting for something negative to happen. And I think the jitters are going to go away after those first couple games of the playoffs. Because we talked about it just earlier about them having that better identity. They have more depth, and I think the fans are going to breathe a big sigh of relief after game 1 or 2 because they know I think it's a different group than in years past.
So, Stu, as you found out last show, there is a YouTube chat for this show we call Leafs Morning Take. It's called Leafs Morning Take. I don't know if you're sure on that front, but this podcast that you and I do together, Leafs Morning Take, the chat's on fire, but Zanzibar, King Street West, everybody's talking about the heyday, man. So you've opened up a new can again today.
Yeah, and they're also talking about a famous chicken wing spot as well, too. I won't mention it, too. I won't mention it. I see the chat now. I'm a veteran.
I love this, man. I was having the conversation with the powers that be behind the scenes, and we were sort of chuckling over the fact that you've been doing this show for like 6 months. You had no clue there was a YouTube chat, but now you do.
I do now, and you see my eyes glancing down, and again, I'm the king of answering people on social media too, so I'm trying to keep my eyes away from it. But it's entertaining to say the least. It just shows the interaction that this show has and how important and popular it is too. So it's one of a kind, which I'm excited and always eager to co-host with you.
Thank you. Likewise, that's a perfect segue to promoting this YouTube channel at the Leafs Nation 401 on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, throw those alerts on. Leafs Morning Take wherever you find your podcasts. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Brought to you by DoorDash. It's time for the appetizer. For a limited time, our listeners can get 25% off, up to $10 in value, and 0 delivery fees on their first order of $15 or more when you download the DoorDash app. Enter code NATION25. That's code NATION25, all in uppercase. 25% off your first order with DoorDash. Offer valid in Canada. Subject to change. Terms apply. So the Maple Leafs have won 6 of the last 7. 1-1-0 against New Jersey this season. Of course, Jack Hughes hasn't played in that game last night, but I thought after surrendering the first goal, the Leafs took control of that game. Obviously, Auston Matthews 1-1. Why don't we start with that conversation? Number 66, the first player to score 66 goals in 28 years, Stewie.
put some respect on Auston Matthews' name, right? And you saw the 66 goals last night, just that release that he has. And again, I was a player that was known for having a really, really good shot, just how it comes on his stick and off his stick. I tweeted about it, I think, 4 or 5 years ago, saying he has the best release of all time. And it's well documented. Mike Betano told me to settle down a little bit, but just seeing the ease that he has, and someone mentioned within the team saying they can see him scoring 80 goals, where with that release and the ease that he plays the game, I wouldn't put it past him to get 70, continuously. And, for me, I want to see him to get 70 plus, because what was the storyline last night on social media? It wasn't the 66 goals. What was it? It was Nathan MacKinnon scoring a hat trick and him going turbo mode. And I saw the tweets that you tweeted at me as well. But I think there's not that respect about, what we're sitting here witnessing. So I know there's that bias of Maple Leafs saying, oh, it's the fans just, cheering about anything they can. But from a player standpoint, I always talk about the players that I've played with, the Eric Stahls and the Kovalchuk. These guys were 40, 45 plus goal guys on the regular, and they were rock stars. Nobody can tell them nothing. They do what they want. So to be able to put now another 30, 35 plus goals and what I was regularly used to seeing, I'm definitely in amazement, because I can't fathom that. I teach skills. I coach some of the pros, and I wouldn't even know what to tell Auston Matthews from an evaluation standpoint. So we are witnessing greatness, and I think the fact that he is a Maple Leaf and they always get a lot of the media, there's not a lot of attention. There should be more attention on it, because it's an amazing feat. And if he gets 70, I don't believe they should be sitting him or resting him. I believe that they should let him get it, because now I think he needs to be in that conversation and ahead of the conversation with some of these other guys that are getting all the headlines.
I've said it time and time again. We've almost been conditioned to expect an Auston Matthews goal at least one every game, which is insane. Like, I think almost to the same degree as Connor McDavid setting that barometer so high, that barometer is exceptionally high as well for Auston Matthews. And that's why people don't even bat an eye. Like, this guy scores a goal. He scores 66 in a season. They're like, oh, whatever. He's going to score again next game and next game and next game. It just speaks to his dominance and his skill level and the release and just the different ways this guy scores goals. Like, the big thing for me is that he scored 66 goals and just 2 empty netters. And I'm sure we'll get into the conversation of why the fuck David Kampf was on the ice in the last 3 minutes of that game and Tyler Bertuzzi is shooting at an empty net. But that's the biggest thing for me, Stu, is everything's come past the goalie this season. Like, imagine he scored a couple more Alex Ovechkin goals this year.
Yeah, but it's just the ease, right? And they're talking about possibly resting him the last couple of games, but when he's playing 19, 20 plus minutes, it's not like he's overly exerting himself. They always pan to him on the bench. He's never, breathing heavily. I remember I was averaging, I think, 14 minutes my one career year in Atlanta. Anytime I played over 14 minutes, I'm huffing and puffing. I get caught out there for a minute 20. I'm done for the game. So it just shows what type of athlete he is, and he just plays the game with ease. So if he's flirting with 70, I think from a legacy standpoint, they got to put him in. I don't think he cares to get it, but I think the Maple Leafs care. I think they want to see him get 70 just to get that respect that I think he's not getting. And another thing too, talking about the Kucherovs and the McDavids and the McKinnons, he has the second most, I think, even strength goals or points as well. And he only has 2 players on his team that have 70 plus points. So he's scoring a lot of these goals on his own. So again, just going back to that respect factor, I think it needs to be talked about more. I think it needs to be celebrated more. But I think the thing that's most important to him is that respect amongst his teammates, because every time they talk about him, you almost hear the amazement in his voice. So I think that's what's most important to him, the respect from his peers, and he's definitely getting it.
Do you realize they've actually quietly been resting Auston Matthews the last 10 games? He's only played over 20 minutes once in the last 7 outings.
Is that due to them trying to rest him, or due to the play of, McMahon getting some more minutes, Bertuzzi and Domi? Those guys are stepping up, and, the fourth line now, you don't have to worry about only playing them 4 or 5 minutes. They can get to the 9, 10, 11 minutes too. So I think when you have a team that's performing and 4 lines that you can play, which wasn't the case in years past, you now have the ability to not have to play Auston Matthews. We were talking about it 2 years ago, they were playing 23, 24 minutes on the regular. That is way too much, but I think it spoke to the lack of depth on that roster that they now have.
Yeah, maybe that's it. I think it's got to be some of the latter as well, but I just see a fresh Auston Matthews. And It's funny you brought up earlier, like I put out an article at the LeafsNation.com, which everybody should check out today. The folks over there did a fantastic job. An article about Auston Matthews and how not once this season has it felt like he's been chasing it. His teammates have been chasing it. His coach has been setting him up for success. Like, I think that's the great story about Auston Matthews' campaign to date. Everything's come to him, man. Like, he's just played his game. And I think the underlying thing, too, is like defensively, like he hasn't skipped a beat. He has been pound for pound, one of the best two-way players in the NHL this year. And that's what I love to see for a guy who scores as often as him. He's not a liability defensively.
Yeah, and he's amongst the league leaders, if not the league leader in block shots. And I don't think that's by design. I think he just is great at getting in lanes, and a lot of those things just hit him. He's not jumping in front of his face, a la the John Tortorella system. So he plays the game the right way. He focuses. You mentioned he's not chasing it. He's not blowing the zone or circling. He's doing a good job staying on top of his centerman. He's doing a good job winning his face-offs. He's playing the game the right way. And I think part of that is what we're witnessing is just the evolution, right? What else do you want? You got your money, you got your term, you got your private jet that you're probably flying in and out of town with, because we don't see you around the city. You don't see him at Two Cats.
I know. Where is he?
I don't know. But I think now you just see that maturity because, he has everything he wants and desires except for that Stanley Cup. So I think now when you see that, you see them playing the game the right way, not cheating, not cutting corners, but most of all that buy-in. And I think with him, I think he understands the legacy. If he wins a Stanley Cup here, that's going to make him probably the greatest Leaf of all time, if that's not the case already.
Well, he's going to be on the greats. He's going to be on Mount Rushmore. Like, if he just keeps trending this way, he could go down as the best goal scorer all time, period. And it's just so hard not to get excited about the way Auston Matthews, the frequency in which he's scoring goals right now, the confidence, the pace he's playing at, the chemistry, which we'll get to with that top line. But do you remember, do you follow the NBA at all?
I can dunk a basketball if that's what you're asking.
I wasn't asking that, but Masai Ujiri a couple years ago, the Raptors played Brooklyn, and he's like, "Fuck Brooklyn!" in the press conference outside.
I remember that.
In front of the crowd.
Yeah.
I'm saying fuck home ice. The 24th road win of the season, most road wins in a season in franchise history. Can you explain why the Maple Leafs are so much better on the road than they're at on home ice? And do you think that could translate to the Stanley Cup playoffs this year?
You want the generic answer or the real answer?
The real answer, please, Stewie. Thank you.
I think it's less media. You don't have to deal with 50 cameras in your face like you do at home, right? When you're on the road, it's a bit of a simpler routine. You get in, you fly in, you have some lunch, you go to dinner, you have a glass of wine, you go to bed, you're on the road. So you don't have to worry about tickets. You don't have to worry about all these media requests and doing appearances during the year. You can just focus 100% on hockey. And again, I'm not chirping the media because I'm in it now. They are great for the city. It's the best media market in the whole entire National Hockey League. But you can focus a little bit more, and it's good to get away from home and just focus on hockey for a little bit too. So that's how I would explain it. And, I've played with a lot of great players, and in the narrative between 2010 and 2000, I'd say 15, a lot of guys did not want to sign here because, you have a bad shift, you're ending up on the front page being called Brian McClutz. And, a player like me is going to have a lot of bad shifts. I don't want to be on the front page of the Toronto Sun, or I don't want to be in the minors, sitting next to Jeff Fingers. So it's great that they've changed the narrative. Having great young players come in like Marner and Matthews and JT sign here long-term, they've changed the narrative on the city now, where now players are attracted. They want to come in and play, with some of these stars. So for me, the media does play an aspect of it. I understand it, whether or not I necessarily agree with it.
And I think two guys who could probably field that question really, really well and talk to that are probably Tyler Bertuzzi and Max Domi, because suffice it is to say, it's a very turbulent start for those two tenures in Toronto, but it's been night and day the last couple months. Like that top line, we talked about it on Monday. The chemistry is building, and it's good game after good game after good game. You look at Tuesday night against New Jersey, 2-1 for Bertuzzi. 8th straight game with a goal against the Devils. He has 9 goals in the past 13. Max Domi, 2 apples. Again, Matthews, 1-1. They combined for 3 goals and 7 points, and it seems like it's a foregone conclusion that's going to be a line one for game 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs, as it should be, right?
Yeah, they've shown that, again, they have that chemistry. And you're looking at the Bertuzzi first goal yesterday, just seeing that nice pass cross seam, with Giordano rushing the net, may have you. That just shows that chemistry that they're building. But I think Auston Matthews, I think it's shown he's going to score goals and put up points no matter who he's playing with. But I think with Bertuzzi and Domi, you're seeing why these guys were brought in. And a lot of it is, and you saw what happened. I hate to bring up David Clarkson. Sometimes when you're brought in, there's all these expectations and you're expected to do more and play above your cap hit. And sometimes you just sort of get caught chasing the game and chasing your role with the team. We saw it with Ryan Reeves as well, too. So I think once they settle in and find their role and find their niche and just focus on playing hockey, you're seeing the best versions of them then, too. So talking about those two, and Domi and Bertuzzi, they could have rode off into the sunset and maybe signed a 3-year, 4-year deal for, somewhere, in the Arizonas or down maybe with Minnesota or somewhere else. But again, they took a big risk and a leap of faith by coming here because I think they understand the gravity of the situation. They come in, do what they need to do. They can cash in with Toronto or somewhere else. And the narrative, I love that how it's changed from 4 or 5 months ago where, are we going to be trading Bertuzzi? Are we getting rid of Domi to, hey, these guys are core pieces and we need to figure out a way to sign them in the offseason.
Did you realize that in a span of 5 minutes, you referenced both Jeff Finger and David Clarkson on this podcast?
I know. The chat's probably going wild. I don't want to look.
And you talked about Arizona, who's soon to be Salt Lake City. So that's a trifecta.
Oh man, we're touching all along the league. We're touching in the past. We're touching, and actually, we got to get Clark MacArthur on this show too. I know we're deviating a little bit too. You ask anybody that's played with Clark MacArthur, they will say he's probably one of the funniest teammates they've ever played with. Dion Phaneuf's birthday actually today or yesterday as well. Happy birthday, double Dion.
We were laughing about that today because we've tried so hard to get Dion Phaneuf on this podcast. He just won't do it. There is nothing we could say to Dion Phaneuf that would get him on this podcast, unfortunately. Maybe you could say something.
I think, honestly, you know what? I'm going to try that. You know me, I'm awful at getting guests. But I'll try for that. I got to be on, but I'll make a few phone calls.
I'll give you have his number, I'm sure. You could text him 3-way, whatever you want. The guy just won't do it. He just doesn't want to talk. Him and Tyler Bozak, man. Bozak would be a lot of fun as well. But yeah, there's a lot of former Leafs. Like I told you what happened last year. We were in Florida at the All-Star weekend and I bumped into Clark MacArthur. And like 2 weeks before, Rosie was telling me how he was his favorite teammate and he played with him. And next thing you know, we had Clark MacArthur on the show last summer. The guy's playing golf with fucking Michael Jordan and Wayne Gretzky. He's having the time of his life. I think he lives out in Florida.
Yeah, he's living down in Florida, not to get into his business too much. But again, he was, I think, still getting paid by the Ottawa Senators. And for tax purposes, living in Florida, that's why he was forced to live down there. But he's living the life. And it's funny, his wife and my wife are still great friends to this day. And, being in the minors in Rochester with him and Drew Stafford and Derek Roy, we had some good times down there. And we called it Buffchester. And to this day, he tells the best story about me selling him a fake watch. So, that's one of my many nicknames. They call me Diamond Doug. You got to hear that story. I'll tell it one day, another time, but that's hilarious. And the minors, that's where he was a great Leaf. But again, a lot of these guys, and we'll get into maybe some of the other players. There's nothing wrong with being in the minors and marinating a little bit, learning to be a pro. And I think that's sort of the narrative with some of the players that are coming up now. They need to get a little bit more maturity in their game, and being down in the minors, I don't think hurts that. It actually helps that too. But that's a good segue to Nick Robertson, who you got to keep this guy in the lineup here. Give him a chance. I talked about this now, I think 10 times on this show about we need to keep this guy in the lineup, give him 25 games, see what he can do. And all he does is score goals when he's in.
Number 13 last night for Robertson, 5 goals in 11 games since being called up from the AHL. And what do you think of that look too? Played with Holmberg and Nylander last night.
Yeah, and again, we know that he has the big shot and the big release, but again, he's one of those players that just finds a way. He's gone through his adversity, but he just finds a way to put the puck in the net. And that's why I'm wondering now, if he wasn't up and down the lineup or in and out and messed with his ice time, not getting proper specialty teams time, we're talking about a 20-goal scorer. And in a salary cap era, you need young guys outperforming their cap hit. So I've been a big advocate, I think, since last year. But I think the good thing is he's increasing his value. I don't think he has ARB this year, but increasing his trade value or his value because he's making the most of what little opportunity he's getting.
18 saves for Joseph Woll last night. First one in 9 days since his injury. 4.50, 3.03, 888 save percentage. What do you need to see from Joseph Woll down the stretch, Stewie?
Solid, not spectacular. right? And we talked about earlier before, that injury is a tough injury to come back from. And sometimes it takes, a month just to get feeling like yourself. And that high ankle sprain, sometimes it takes the whole entire season. So I think for him, what the issue was before he got hurt, he was just there in being that number one. I think it's probably about another 5, 6, 7 starts, but he just wasn't there just yet, where he didn't really have all that confidence. And that other 5, 6 starts, I think, would have got him there too. So I think he just got to reset, get his confidence back, play solid, not spectacular. I don't think the narrative needs to be he needs to come in and be a number 1A or 1B. Just come in, make the timely saves, be solid, not spectacular.
I think speaking of spectacular, today's guest is ready to rock here on Leafs Morning Take. This interview is brought to you by Douglas, named Canada's best mattress on Canadian living. Douglas is loved by more than 200,000 Canadians, and they're backed by over 10,000 five-star reviews. Every mattress order comes with a free comfort sleep bundle, 2 memory foam pillows with pillow protectors, 1 luxurious cotton sheet set, and 1 mattress protector. Order today at douglas.ca/LMT. That's douglas.ca/LMT as you bring in David Amber from Sportsnet. DA, what's going on?
Hey guys, how you doing?
Doing well. This reunion of a bit, Stewie, or what?
Oh yeah, look at DA. Look like you just came back from the gym, buddy, with the arm curls. I like it. Good seeing you as always.
If there's any problems during this conversation, I want you to direct any anger at me to my personal email, Anthony Stewart at hotmail.com.
That was my line. I got it with that for about 4 or 5 years. You got me with that, DA. It's always great seeing you, buddy.
Yeah, how you guys doing?
Not bad. I mean, we're just we're in the conversation obviously about last night and the excitement level. Like, DA, it's sort of hilarious every time this year in Leafs Nation, at least the last 8 years, there's like that cautious optimism. How are you feeling about this team?
Well, I think they're playing really well right now. They've won 6 of 7 games. They're getting contributions from a lot of different players. I think Brad Treliving deserves a lot of credit in the sense, we looked at the shortcomings of this team and why they haven't been able to sort of get to where a lot of fans and internally what the organization wanted them to get to. And that's probably overall balance and team toughness, not bringing in one guy, but bringing in a bunch of guys who are comfortable playing the playoff style hockey. And I think to some degree and to a large degree, Brad Treliving has addressed that. And, I liken it to the Vancouver Canucks guys. Jim Rutherford, Patrick Alvin, they looked at what was the problem with that Canucks team. They had to revamp that defense, right? They had to fix their PK and revamp the defense, Zadorov and Roenick and Susie and Cole, and they've done that. And look at what's happened with Vancouver this year. You look at the Leafs and, listen, I don't know if they're going to win in the first round or not. It's going to be, they're playing, either Boston or Florida, arguably 2 of the top 5-6 teams in the league. Anything could happen, but they're not going to get bullied. They're not going to be pushed around like we saw them get pushed around in that series against Florida last year. And granted, they could have won that series, but Bobrovsky was fantastic. But at the end of the day, Florida was much more comfortable playing their style of hockey, and the Leafs had to adapt to that style, and they were uncomfortable doing that. This year, if they are playing Florida or Boston, 2 disciplined teams, 2 teams who play so hard, and in Florida's case has a ferocious forecheck, I think they'll be much more prepared for that. So I think Leaf fans can feel a level of comfort knowing the team is playing incredibly well right now, and this could be a year where there's different results come to the postseason.
DA, you've been covering this team for a while now. Is there a different feeling in the air when it comes to with regards to this team? You're seeing Bertuzzi and Domi and Reeves come in and carve out roles and add a little bit more depth. And I remember in years past working with you when Nylander was on the third line or not having an off night, the sky was falling. Is it a bit different this year? And do you feel differently about this group than years past?
Well, it's funny because think about back to October and November. Domi wasn't comfortable, wasn't producing. Bertuzzi wasn't comfortable, wasn't producing. Reeves was relegated. He wasn't playing well. Then he got injured. Samsonov. It's been a real change in the last half of the season for those 4 players. And, Domi especially, I mean, he was flying last night. He obviously is feeling incredibly comfortable, incredibly confident playing with a player like Auston Matthews. And if somehow they can make this work where you have Domi up on the top line with Matthews, you have Marner in kind of anchoring a second line with Tavares and McCann, and you have Nylander anchoring a third line. If somehow that can work, and they get balance up and down the lineup, it's going to be really matchup problems for whoever their opponent is. So there is a different feel. They're still hashing it out. It would not surprise me at all if day one of the postseason we're seeing Marner back with Matthews. It wouldn't surprise me, but certainly Domi's making a case for allowing him to stay there. And hopefully Marner can find great traction with Tavares and McCann or whomever, and you have greater balance. And that's something that would serve the Leafs well.
Does Matthews get to 70 goals? What have you made of his campaign and the Hart Trophy conversation?
Well, to me, the Hart Trophy conversation is the most interesting race there is to be determined over the next 10 days leading into the postseason. As much as it's interesting who gets home ice and what the matchups are going to be, that's all very interesting as well. But I just can't remember for the life of me a Hart race with this many legitimate candidates. Do I think he'll get to 70? I'm not going to bet against Auston Matthews. He scored in the last 6 games. He needs, 4 goals in 4 games? That's the math. He has New Jersey, Detroit, and then Tampa and Florida. He's shooting. First of all, he's playing with a level of mojo that we haven't seen. It's a rarefied air what we're seeing from him and McKinnon and McDavid and Kucherov this year. It's really incredible. And he's very motivated, obviously, to get to 70 goals, something we haven't seen happen, since 1993. It's worth noting, guys, in 1993, Solani and McGillney both scored, I think, 76 goals. They didn't win the Hart, since you asked me about the Hart. The difference then, I think, is you had Lemieux at 69 goals. You had 2 other players in the 60s. You had 5 goals, 60 plus. You had 2 guys in the 70s. It was incredible, but I don't think it was like eye-popping, like, wow, because it was almost normalized. You could have Auston Matthews guys with 70 goals, and the next highest goal scorer has, let's say, 55. Reinhardt's at 53 right now, or maybe he'll be at 56, let's say. He's lapping the field. If he ends with 70 and the next highest guy ends with 56, he's scoring 20% more goals than any other player in the league. You have to acknowledge that. It's not just winning the Rocket, and it's not just scoring 70, but it's blowing away the field. It's lapping the field. So that should go into his candidacy. Having said that, what Kucherov's doing, what McKinnon's doing, and just the eye test, when you watch McKinnon, you're just like, this guy's unbelievable. You guys see that hat trick last night?
Yeah.
It was EA Sports. It's video game. So I'm not sure Matthews is going to win the MVP, but you have to at least give high acknowledgement to what he's doing, and that he's entered the conversation in a year where Kucherov's going to end up with 100 assists, maybe 150 points. McDavid's going to have 100 assists and who knows how many points. And McKinnon, just the eye test, you say McKinnon, my goodness, what a player. So just to be in the conversation says a lot about the season Matthews has had.
Well, I think the difference is between now and back then is the goalies don't have Sears catalogs as pads this year in today's game. But, there's been a lot of, conversation and debate on what's more impressive. So what's more impressive for you and sort of the panel that you've been working on, that potential 70 goals or 100 assists when it pertains to today's game?
Oh, man, that's like choosing between Betty and Veronica. There's no wrong answer there. They're both incredible feats. Listen, 3 players ever, Lemieux, Orr, and Gretzky, have ever had 100 assists. So I don't want to diminish that by any means. And only 8 players ever have had 70 goals. So they're both incredible. Maybe the only thing that would diminish at all, and I'm saying this with an asterisk, the only thing that would diminish it at all is the idea that both Kucherov and McDavid are seemingly going to get 100 assists in the same season. But I don't want to sleep on that. Think about the volume it takes to get 100 assists. And McDavid, listen, he scored 64 goals last year. He could have scored 64 goals this year. I'm sure of it. I think McDavid sort of says, what do I want to do this year? Do I want 60 goals? Okay. Do I want 100 assists? Okay. Next year, maybe I'll say, yeah, let's go for 170 points. Okay. That's what we're going to do. He's that good, right? He's just that good. It's really hard to choose between those two. Listen, there's not secondary goals. You have to put the puck in the net. So there's that aspect of it as well. Primary assists, maybe weigh a little bit differently than secondary assists, and it changes the dynamic. But I don't want to. You're putting me in a bad spot, Stewie. This is what you do. You put me in a bad spot.
That's my
The
move.
haters are going to hate. 70 goals is incredible. 100 assists is incredible. I don't think we have to necessarily diminish one to build up the other. They're both incredible in their own right. I'm just going to leave it at that. It's not the answer you want, but what do you think? What do you guys think? Is 70?
Yeah, what do you think,
70
Stewie?
goals.
What's your answer,
70
Stewie?
goals. Like I just go back to the rock star status, like, being around a Kovalchuk or an Eric Stahl or Nola Jokinen. These guys were 35, 40, 45 goals, and they ran the league. It was like you couldn't tell these guys any. I could not imagine, the big wheelish attitude that Matthews had. 60 goals, like it's unfathomable. And I was a guy that scored goals in junior, and 35 back then. You were a monster. So I can't fathom being in a room and just how easy he's scoring these goals. 70 for me is more impressive.
Listen, 70 is a huge number, and quite frankly, it's not even a number I thought about, right? Like, I look at Ovechkin as going to be the greatest goal scorer ever. He has 160 goal season, guys. One.
I know.
And it was 65, which is incredible, but he didn't sniff 70. So I think, and I've said this, and Stu, when we worked the shows together, I would say this a lot. I hope the hockey fans are taking this in. We are watching greatness with Connor McDavid. We are watching an all-time great player. In my opinion, he will finish with the second most points ever behind Wayne Gretzky, the greatest player ever. We are watching a generational goal scorer in Auston Matthews. I don't know where he's going to finish. It's too premature to start saying he's going to finish with the most goals or whatever, but he's on track to finish with the most goals ever. So let's just take that for what it is. We are watching greatness right now. We should take that in. Cale Makar, Quinn Hughes, Connor Hellebuck, David Pastrnak. We're at it's a golden era in hockey. We're watching some, you see Svechnikov with the friggin' Michigan on the road in Boston. I mean, not the first Michigan he's done. Like, we are watching a level of hockey. Stu, you teach and coach up in coming, guys who want to play in the NHL, and at age 11, 12, 13, 14, they're doing things that 20 years ago NHLers couldn't do. Like that's the level of skill we're witnessing. And when you go to the elite top level of that skill, the Connor McDavid's, Auston Matthews, it's incredible. So I do hope people are appreciating what's happening right now.
Definitely. It's like, are you not entertained? I can't remember a time I've just been this pumped to watch NHL hockey on a nightly basis. You mentioned McKinnon. The whole Art Ross race has been something to document. Obviously, McDavid banged up, but the way Matthews is playing, Pastrnak, there's just so many elite players in this league. DA, looking forward to the Stanley Cup playoffs. I mean, it looks like it's going to be the Florida Panthers here in round one. How do you think the Leafs stack up against them this year?
Well, as I said earlier, I think they stack up much better. I don't want to buy too much into the fact that over the last 28 games, the Leafs have the best record in the NHL, and Florida's kind of done a little bit of a slide. I don't think that matters. I think once the puck is dropped, opening night of the Stanley Cup playoffs, all bets are off. People who didn't take Florida seriously last year saw what happened with Boston, and I know they came within a Brad Marchand breakaway of winning that series in 5 games, but they didn't. And we know what Bobrovsky is capable of, right? We saw last year firsthand what he did to Boston, what he did to Toronto, what he did to Carolina. They made that Carolina team look very pedestrian. Carolina scored 6 goals against Florida in a 4-game series. Think about that. So, and the Leafs scored 10 goals in the 5-game series. So we see how good, tenacious, and ferocious and balanced and deep that Florida team is. But having said all those great things, and I just poured effusive praise on the Florida Panthers, I do think Toronto's playing with a bit more mojo, a bit more swagger. They certainly have more depth on the blue line. They can run 7-8 deep on the blue line. They're going to have some hard choices to make on who doesn't play game one of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Like, who are you sitting? Simon Benoit, who's been an absolute force. Are you sitting Mark Giordano, who's, got a goal last night, is starting to feel a little bit more mojo? Are you sitting TJ Brody? Like, what are you going to do? Some of these guys, there's not room for all of them. So someone is sitting. Liljegren, I don't know. So it's good to have those problems. And that wasn't a problem in the past for the Leafs. There was a lack of depth and a lack of maybe swagger. And I think this team has a bit more of that. So I think they're better suited. Having said that, there's going to be 3 or 4 teams that lose in the first round that had their eyes on getting to the Cup final or winning a Cup final, right? Like, Dallas could be playing Vegas, guys, right?
Yeah.
The matchups are incredible. It's not going to be an easy path for whomever. And the Leafs fall into that boat, whether they play Boston or Florida is immaterial. They're going up against a team that clearly has their sights set on the Stanley Cup championship. And you could put the Leafs in that category too. I'm sure with how well they've played the last 2 months that they're thinking we're right there. We can win a cup too. So I think they're better prepared, but it's not going to be easy.
Yeah, suddenly, I mean, there's a lot of depth with this team. I think a big word this season I've used is accountability. And speaking of which, we hold the folks in our YouTube chat accountable. You want further proof, DA, that you're doing an excellent job at broadcasting? The fact that somebody accused you in our chat of being a Montreal Canadiens fan. Can you believe that?
When? Just now?
Yeah, that's the one thing I've never grasped from you is being a Habs fan. It just shows you're doing your job properly, I guess.
I am, and Stewie knows this. I actually respond to people once in a while. I kind of shoot them a DM, and they're like, "Oh, it's so clear you're wearing your Leaf pom-poms," or "Oh, it's so clear you love the Oilers." I'm in it for all 7 Canadian teams. Stu is my witness. When the Winnipeg Jets lose, I'm like, "Oh God, I cannot believe that Jets lost." Like I'm sitting here going, "Okay, we got 4 lottery balls here." It's been 30 years. I was a wee lad. Well, I wasn't a wee lad, but I was much younger. I had an afro. It was that long
Still
ago.
Jack, though. Still Jack.
I was much younger the last time the Stanley Cup was won by a Canadian team. I was at university, and I was in Montreal, and it was the Montreal Canadiens in 1993. And it's been 30 plus years now. I don't care if it's Vancouver, Edmonton, Toronto, Winnipeg. It would just be so nice for that market. And quite frankly, I think it'd be nice for the country. I think once a team gets to the final, maybe the Leafs are the exception. I don't think necessarily Habs fans are going to cheer for the Leafs in the final if they get there. But I think there'll be a lot of people across Canada who are like, "Oh, it's cool. The Cup's back in this country where hockey means so much." So I'm not a Habs fan. I am a fan of the Canadian teams winning. And I certainly am a fan of a bunch of players. And I love what Slafkovsky's doing this year. And Nick Suzuki's had an incredible year. And Matheson's been a great story. And I love Martin St. Louis. So there's guys and Brendan Gallagher. I love how a lot of those guys play. But yeah, I try to be as unbiased as possible.
I'll accuse you of being a Ottawa fan because you get to fire it up the most when they lose, and you call them a disgrace when they lose.
It has been a tough year for Ottawa. Don't even get me started. I mean,
that's
so bad for Brady Tkachuk in the end. I think that's the year. By the way, guys, while we're talking about the Senators briefly here, Winnipeg was the team everyone kept their eye on last year. You heard Rick Bowness when the team lost in that series. No pushback, no pushback, no pushback, no heart. Like he ripped the team, and you're like, okay, what's going to happen in the offseason? They trade Dubois. They let go of Wheeler, who was their former captain. And I think there's going to be a big facelift to the Ottawa Senators. I don't know how dramatic it's going to be, but I just think it would behoove that management team to just like, well, let's run it back again. And it's not that the guys are washed up. Like you have some incredible players there, the Stützles and Bathersons and Tkachuk and Sanderson. I'm not saying they're going to get rid of their core, but I think they definitely is going to be some personnel change because it's not just as simple as bringing in a new coach or now they have a new GM or whatever the case may be. I think you look at that group as a totality and say, you know what, they've had their run for 3, 4, 5 years. They've underachieved, and we need to shake things up. And obviously, goaltending goes a long way too. Their goaltending's been a complete mess this year, but I do think Ottawa will be that interesting team this offseason in Canada as far as a shakeup.
Yeah, first and foremost, I think they got to handle their proper conduct when it comes to empty net goals. They got to figure out which route they're going to take. Lastly, the chat, a lot of people in the chat loving your physique as per usual, but want to see you and The Rock at WrestleMania next year. Can you do that?
The Rock. I leave The Rock to Stewie. That's Stewie's Halloween costume. Has he put it out there on your show yet? I'm sure every week.
We have, yeah.
I'll post that picture later. Thanks, DA. That's great.
There you go. In fact, that was a very good one. The Rock was back at WrestleMania, wasn't he?
Yeah, man. Nostalgic. Wrestling's so back. Stewie knows I'm a big wrestling guy. I had a great weekend. The Raw after Mania. Bit disappointing, but really, really excited. Really excited for the Stanley Cup playoffs. But thank you so much for doing this today. Really appreciate it.
Anytime, guys. And Thursday night, we have Leafs and New Jersey. And it wouldn't shock me. Don't hold out like this might be a wishful wish, but whether it's Thursday, New Jersey, Saturday versus Detroit, I could see Matthews in the next 2 games collectively getting what he needs to get done to hit the 70-goal club. I wouldn't put it past him at all. So we'll wait and see what happens. But thanks for having me on, fellas. I appreciate it.
Anytime. Take care. It's David Amber, the one and only David Amber. I think the suits would go wild. The sushi sales at Scotiabank Arena, Stu, if Matthews hit 70 on home ice, would be wild, man.
Yeah, I'm just laughing at the chat. Someone asked, does he have an open carry for those guns? But again, the DA, he's one of the most knowledgeable broadcasters in the country. And I said, whatever he doesn't know, he has an answer for you. Not online, doesn't check his Google. He checks his binder. And it's funny, one time I actually made him pull it out on air, and I think it actually had his phone number on the front of the book. And I think in the middle of like the intermission, someone actually texted him, "Hey, is this David?"
Are you serious?
Oh yeah, and he's like, "Stewie, like, why'd you make me pull my binder out?" So, no, he's a great sense of humor, very knowledgeable, and he is impartial. He's impartial, but again, he is serious. When a Canadian team loses, he's like, "Oh man, this is a disgrace." Like, his world ends. He is a Canadian hockey fan through and through.
Does a great job. And again, that's a telltale sign. If you're a broadcaster covering hockey, and I took pride in this in my 8.5 years at NHL Network Radio, not one single person on those airwaves who listened to me knew who I was a fan of, which I think just speaks volumes to the type of broadcaster you are. Like every fan base thought I hated them, including the Maple Leafs. It was hilarious.
Yeah, it's funny. I get accused of being a Leaf. I'm a Toronto sports fan now that I'm retired. I want to see the teams in Toronto do well, and it's funny. I played for the North York Canadians growing up too, so I have a really good picture. I always show a picture of me in a Habs jersey when someone accuses me of being a Leaf fan. But I'm a Toronto sports fan, like everybody that lives in Toronto.
Yeah, Boy Soul writes in Nick is a true Habs fan. I'm like DA, man. I would love to see the Leafs win, but I want to see a Canadian team win, man. I just, you know me, like I watch so much hockey, nightly basis. That's all I'm doing. I'm watching Arizona. I don't know. I just love the game so much. And just one final thought on DA. I remember back in school, College of Sports Media, I show up. In fact, I showed up a month late because I had mono. Going into my first year at College of Sports Media, and I meet David Amber, and I'm like, holy shit, this guy's a weapon of mass destruction. And I remember the girls in my class just salivating over this guy. Like, he's not even like flexing, but you've worked with him. He's just a big dude. Like, he's big in stature, easy to approach. And I'm like, I have no chance in school with David Amber there, man. It's hilarious. But
it's funny. He's a big dude. He's 6'2", and he is jacked. I'm almost like, why didn't you take hockey a little bit more serious? Like, you could have played in the league. Like, you imagine him as an enforcer, he'd punch a hole in your head.
Yeah, no, he's the best. And we had a good time a couple years back, that New Year's, if you recall, a couple years ago at one of your favorite spots on King West. It's not Greta, so we're not going to mention it. Okay, we roll on. Many thanks to David Amber for hopping on the program. This segment is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers. Get custom ring building delivered in less than 4 weeks with the Charm Masterpiece program and an unbeatable pricing policy. For more information, go to charmdiamondcenters.com. Every team's looking for that ring this time of year. In terms of the standings, Stu, in the Atlantic Division, Toronto's 3 points back of Florida for second in the Atlantic with 1 game in hand. The Panthers beating Ottawa last night, and Tampa beats Columbus. So nothing really changes. They're 6 points up on Tampa for third in the Atlantic, both at 78 games. So 4 games remaining for Tampa and Toronto. Again, it seems like a foregone conclusion. It's going to be the Florida Panthers, your old team, in the first round here of the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yeah, I'm checking now. It's again, I think Florida's going to have to run the table, and Boston, take a dump too these last 3 games as well. But for me, it's, if you want to be the man, you got to beat the man. I think for Toronto, it doesn't matter at this point. And then, I'm a true believer. If Toronto is playing the best versions of themselves, and they get the goaltending, I think they beat Florida and the Boston Bruins. And what makes it different is the depth, unsung heroes, different nights, depth on the fence, and they have depth up front. They have guys that can come in and don't miss a beat. And, going back to Nick Robertson, he's coming in and out of the lineup and he's not missing a beat. Domi, I'll mention Nyes as well too. These guys are built for the playoffs. So I'm excited just because it's built a little bit differently. They have some more snarl. And they have the ultimate weapon. They have the Hulk in Auston Matthews.
Yeah, let's fucking go. That's what I say. LFG is one of my favorite things that I read in text on a daily basis, aside from the eggplant emoji. But we're 1 week away from the conclusion of the regular season for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to what's going to transpire. But yeah, there's like this optimism in the air in Toronto, and a lot of people excited for game 1 of the playoffs, believed to be April 20th. It's time for the Great Clips Inbox Question of the Week. With more than 4,400 hair salons throughout the United States and Canada, Great Clips is the world's largest hair salon brand and official hair salon of the NHL. Salons are locally owned and operated and open 7 days a week. Your time is valuable. Use the Great Clips check-in app, see the wait time, check in on your phone, and get your haircut when you want. Mr. P-Mail Bacon writes in, would Stu or Nick put $1,000 on Auston getting 70 goals this season?
$1,000. If I would put it on if you knew he was going to play the last grouping of games. So again, there's been some rumors that they're going to rest him. So I wouldn't put 1,000. I'd put 100 down confidently. I'm not a big gambler, but I'd put $100 on it.
Yeah, I'd probably go $200 if I had that type of money to put down. I feel really, really confident it's going to happen. And piggybacking off what David Amber just said, I think it happens as soon as Saturday against Detroit. Like, the one thing missing in this 6-game goal streak for Matthews is that multi-goal game, which has been accustomed to Matthews throughout the season. Like, he's got 6 hatties. Would you be shocked if he comes out on Thursday, no Jack Hughes for New Jersey, home ice, feeling good, getting into a weekend, probably the last green light special weekend of the season for the Toronto Maple Leafs? Maybe they go out in King Street West. Maybe they get set for Greta Bar to open on April 26th. And they're just loving it and feeling it. Would you be shocked if Matthews gets to 70, say, by Saturday against Detroit? I wouldn't.
No, I wouldn't be shocked, because it's funny. As he scored his goal last night, it's, the announcements, he's been kind of quiet tonight. Boom, the puck's in the net. So I think, in hearing DA, talking about McDavid, he decides what he wants to do. Do I want to have 60 goals? Do I want to have 100 assists? I think Auston Matthews, if he puts his mind to it and says, hey, you know what? I'm going to fire 8-9 shots tonight and really push for this. I think he can do it, because he's one of those guys that can go off and have a big game. So I think for him, he's just quietly going about it. And again, the plan is to rest him. Okay, well, you know what? Let me try to get it by game 80.
He's hilarious because, and people love when I bring up beer leagues on this podcast. It's like playing D-level beer league, but you want to bring out your ringer buddy who's just way better than everybody else, and he should be in the A league, but you bring him out for D league and he scores at will. That's how Auston Matthews scores in the NHL, but unfortunately, there's not a league higher than the NHL. Like, just to put into context how easy this guy makes goal scoring look. You mentioned it. You were a goal scorer in your time. Just watching the game, it just makes no sense. The puck always seems to find his stick, and no goalie has an answer. And the great thing is the variety in which he scores, right? It's never really the same way. Like, he's got a variety of different goals that he's gone to this season.
Yeah, he gets to the net, and you're seeing Stamkos on the one flank, Ovechkin on the flank, Kucherov he's all over the ice, and he scores in different varieties of ways. And go back to that goal last night. Look at Jake Allen. Jake Allen's been a tenured goalie in this National Hockey League. He's a foot outside the crease, and Matthews still went bar down on a split second release. So, when you talk about the release, just go and break it down on how he just caught it, got it off. There was some traffic closing in on him, and he still found a way to go bar down. So this is a guy that has turned his shot into a weapon. And if I'm a goalie, there's no way I'd want to be standing in front of this. You know who I feel sorry for? I feel sorry for the goalies in practice that have to see this, 200 times every single day. So I'm sure his shot has gotten Wall and Samsonov and Jones better, because the way that he changes the angle, but just the velocity, it's definitely a weapon.
Machine. That's all you could say about Auston Matthews. For more information, check out greatclips.com. Great Clips, it's going to be great. From there, we roll to the Betano wrap-up presented by Betano.ca. The game starts now. 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Betano is the official partner of Copa America 2024, taking the beautiful game to new heights in the Americas. Join Betano on their journey of passion, unity, and unforgettable football moments. A quiet NHL card, I believe, just 3 games. I'm going to look at St. Louis and Chicago. I would take the Connor Bedard shot prop, probably going to be over 3.5 in that game. I believe that game's on TNT. The Darren Pang revenge game. We had Darren on the program yesterday. So I think Bedard's going to be horny to shoot the puck tonight.
Yeah, just bet on Vancouver, just piss pumping the Coyotes tonight. So if you have $100 and P-Mail Bacon, even $1,000, put that on Vancouver tonight too. That's my sure bet. But again, if there's any issues on you collecting or you're not winning that bet, please send your complaints to @David Amber. That's my social media handle.
The show has reached new heights ever since Anthony Stewart figured out on Monday that we have a YouTube chat for this show. So Stewie, excellent job, man. I believe you're back in the mix next week. I'm going to try my best to get former Leafs legend former Panthers legend Olli Jokinen on the show at some point. Like, he's the guy I want to break down this first round series.
Ooh, that would be good too. But I think he's on finish time right now. I don't think he's been in town for a couple of years now too. But that would be a great guy. He's very knowledgeable, right? I used to he mentored me when I was in Florida on and off the ice too. But he knew the game. He was cut from the old school cloth, but great hockey mind, great hockey player, very underrated. I know he didn't have the greatest time playing for the Leafs, but he was a star when it was star time in the league.
I wonder if he's still mucking those Big Mac meals. You know that I don't know if you remember that clip that
when
went
he was in
viral.
Calgary. Oh, that was the first
McDonald's
GIF.
and the Big
I think that
Macs.
was the first hockey GIF ever. No, who started that? That guy's a legend. Whoever did that GIF. Wow.
Yeah, that was like the original GIF. A lot of people in the chat asking for Dion Phaneuf. Folks, we have tried for 2 years. Rosie played with him. Rosie went out to the clubs with him. This guy ain't budging, man. I'll try my best again.
I'm gonna get him. I'm telling you, if I'm gonna do my best, I'm gonna get double Dion. I'm getting him.
That's an Anthony Stewart guarantee. On like 1 to Mark Messier. How do you feel about that guarantee?
Yeah, I don't know. If it doesn't happen, what are you gonna? The chat's gonna come show up to my house. Maybe they might dox me. So yeah, they might show up at my house. But for the crowd, for the group that's been cracking jokes in the group chat, I'll do my best to get double Dion.
Yeah, we saw Hockey Equality right in the chat today. So I mean,
yeah, that's me. That's me. I'm logged in. I'm logged in.
When it said Dash Stewie, I figured that was you.
Yeah. Make a donation. Every dollar counts. $1 at a time. Yeah.
Okay, you've run out of words for today's show in which we're paying you. So Stewie, excellent job. Jay Roseau, folks, back in the mix tomorrow. Maybe he'll explain his whereabouts. He'll be back in full steam for the Stanley Cup playoffs for sure. We're going to tee up another installment between the Leafs and the Devils, and former Devil Mike Rupp is going to drop by. The NHL Network's going to get Rupper's thoughts. I know last year he loved going on social media, calling the Leafs soft. I wonder if he still feels that way about this incarnation of the Maple Leafs team. So we'll leave it at that. Thank you to everybody in the chat at the Leafs Nation 401 on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Leafs want to take wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Thank you to David Amber for dropping by. Producer Vic, great job as per usual. For Anthony Stewart, I'm Nick Alberga. Talk tomorrow. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews. We got clips. We got epic rants by Jay Roseau. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.